Hey guys, I'm Chris,
And I'm Mike.
and welcome back to this week's No Limits, the Dark Wolf After Show. How you doing today, Mike?
I'm good, and I am very happy to introduce a special guest. We are joined by TV, the creator behind the Terminal Vengeance YouTube channel, friend of the pod for a number of years now. Welcome, TV. You got to tell us all about your channel.
Thank y'all for having me. Yeah, so I started my channel a few years ago. I basically make what I wanted to watch on YouTube. I wanted to see people talking about the show and nobody really was. So I started and I would do like Easter egg breakdowns, find the hidden details and like the callbacks to the book and then make a video on it. And I guess people like it.
Yeah,
That's
that's kind of why we want to be the after show. We want to do those spoilers as well. We want to dig in deep, find the nuggets, make it accessible for anybody who just watches the shows, the first Terminalist season or now Dark Wolf, so that they have an after show to go to. But we also want to bring people to the books. That's our ultimate mission. We're book readers through and through. I mean, you and I connected first a few years back over the books, The Terminalist, and I think Red Sky Morning was coming out at the time. And so that has to be the mission of both the show itself and all the commentary about the show. Let's get people to the books, because that's where James Reese is really James Reese. I think on page is the James Reese I know and love. The TV shows are fun, but we got to get people reading the books. They're just incredible.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I think it's easier to get people to watch a show, but it's harder to get people into books. But when they get into them, they're just hooked. So it just makes my day whenever someone says, I decided to buy the book and I'm loving it.
Yeah, no, it's great. No, I love your breakdowns. Like it's interesting because I want this community to be like, I don't know. I look at some of the other things that I want or I watch from, like Nerdverse, right? Whether it's Marvel or X-Men, like any of these like IP machines, you have a bunch of podcasts out there. You have New Rock Stars, you have like the Ringerverse, you have a bunch of them. Yet, like and I feel like these books aren't like that super niche. Like they're literally New York Times bestsellers like every year. Like, you walk through any airport, you walk through any bookstore, you're going to see it there and it's pushed. But yet like this kind of community doesn't quite exist. And so, definitely obviously love having you on and want to elevate your stuff. I want more and more people to like and subscribe and engage in this community, because the more people we get watching us or, watching you, listening to us, I feel like it just would breed other creators. It just builds upon this community that we would like to see happen.
Yeah, and I think an age demographic as well might be a difference. Some of those IPs you mentioned and those channels like New Rockstar, Screen Rant, all the others, I do wonder if older demographics, I'm talking, 50 plus, would necessarily be going to that media and content. And I feel like they're not. But, TV, your channel speaks to a younger demographic. You yourself are, on the younger side, still in school. So I feel like that you need new media to do that, right? You need the social
Sure.
media, you need the podcasts. And I think there's a big opportunity. I don't know if it's years away from channels like ours and yours popping off. Yours has already grown massively looking at your stats. So keep it coming. We want more of that. What is it? A rising tide lifts all boats.
Yeah.
This space is definitely not crowded out like some YouTube genres, cooking, food, golf. I feel like those things are so oversaturated. I think book YouTube is not there yet. I think we're just on the precipice.
Yeah, for sure. You very rarely get to be the first or the only, but sometimes, since nobody else is talking about it, I am the first or I am the only person. And y'all too. Like I've been listening to y'all talking about Dark Wolf, and it's been great to have someone else. It's like when you see something, if you don't have any friends that watch it, you want to talk to someone about it, and that's kind of what the podcast is like.
Yeah. I don't know, me and Mike, I don't know if you ended up cutting it out of the episode or not, but like we went on this rant about the lack of cultural zeitgeist that exists in the world and how I'm enjoying that, you know, Amazon Prime put out like the first 3 episodes and is putting out these episodes 1 per week because it, one, gives me something to look forward to. I'm a busy dad. I don't have times to binge, you know, shows like I used to back in high school or college. But also, like, you know, it builds some suspense for it. And like, I'll be texting Mike, or I'll text in our, you know, group me chat, like, hey, like, what did you think about this? What do you think about that? You know, I feel like we've gotten farther and farther away from that as a society, back to, I don't know, like when one was the last, I guess Game of Thrones was really the last one that was kind of like that. You know, I remember when the Breaking Bad season finale came out. This is dating me. And like, you know, going to work right after that, and everyone was talking about it. Or, you know, like when everyone hated the season 8 of Game of Thrones, like everyone was talking about that. So I don't know, but I know there are people that are engaging in this season. Dark Wolf, people at work, you know, have randomly brought it up and they're liking it. So
I think the marketing end on the production team side is way better than the Terminal List season 1. For some reason, it's more findable on Amazon. There's more billboards and things, you know, you're seeing posted in airports and bus stops in major metropolitan areas. So I feel like things are clicking now that weren't necessarily there on the first run of the TV show. And I think that's resonating with all these new media groups, because even I think it was Screen Rant did some interviews with all the actors. And however that publicity machine gets rolling, I'm seeing Taylor Kitsch, Tom Hooper, they're out on tour, right? They're doing tons of content, tons of interview with big name media outlets. And I don't recall that happening to this level. Maybe it's also Chris Pratt's production team. I know he has a big role in the show. I just think they have a bigger platform with Dark Wolf than they did the Terminal List. And I'm kind of glad about that. One, I think it's just an overall better show. I think it's more likely to drive people to the books as well, even though James Reese was barely a figment of our imagination in episode 1 and poof, gone, 1 and 2. And it wasn't even in 2, really, just a little in the beginning. So I feel like I'm okay if people start with Dark Wolf, get a little taste, either watch the show or read a book, and they are absolutely coming back to True Believer. And we didn't even say it. We are spoiling episodes 4 and 5 today. We already covered, Chris and I, 1, 2, and 3. So TV, you're with us to talk about 4 and 5. These episodes are a massive setup for True Believer. Like, they're doubling down, particularly in 5, with some things we get about Rafe during the torture scene. Do you guys feel it almost Dark Wolf is subtly, and you wouldn't see it unless you were a book reader, is subtly also teeing up True Believer to come next year or 27 or whenever we get it?
Yeah, definitely. There's so many things that are like callbacks to the book, but like you were saying, if you never read the book, it's not like in your face and you're not getting lost when these details are thrown in.
yeah, and I think it's, you know, I don't know if we were talking about this last time or offline. While we love True Believer as a book, I felt like it would have been a hard jump to go from the Terminal List to that. Especially, one, just like the way the book's set up with, you know, the whole beginning being on a boat and traveling to Africa and all that stuff. But then a lot of it is callback. And so, you know, him thinking about like the past or reminiscing about something. And so instead of having that, you know, one, putting it in this origin story in this medium here, obviously, you know, we only got they cast a big star in Taylor Kitsch for Ben Edwards, and you want to get your money's worth out of that. And I would say he's doing very good in this episode, and you are seeing his progression, you know, teeing it up to like, all right, now maybe I can understand more of like how he, you know, ends up switching in the future in Terminal List. So yeah, I think, you know, whoever sat down and was like, hey, what do we do next? I'm fully agreeing with like, all right, let's take a step back. Let's do this prequel show. You know, because we have what we have, and I think it's going to make Terminal List season 2 True Believer that much better.
Yeah. Perfectly said. Yeah, I can't agree more with that decision being the right one as the direction to take the show. And sometimes you do when books go back in time. Think about Mitch Rapp, right? When Vince Flynn did American Assassin, and then that trilogy never wrapped up. Then he jumped ahead and, you know, ultimately ended up with The Last Man. I feel like some people were lost. Some of the readers got a little confused about the timeline. And it opened up this whole, where do we begin? Do you begin with American Assassin? Do you begin with Term Limits or Transfer of Power? I could see that happening with the Terminalist, but I think over time, let's say they make 6, 7, whatever TV shows, Dark Wolf's number one. Like, I do think of Dark Wolf as like the first season you watch. So I feel like that's pretty clear. And it's going to make, you're right, particularly the ending of Terminalist, book or TV show, much. Because one of the biggest criticisms at the end of the TV show, kind of in the book too, is what the hell happened with Ben? Like, what? His seal mate? His seal brother? That's a very big critique of that book. And I understand that. And then Jack was smart enough to realize that. So he carries it over, not too many spoilers, into True Believer, Savage Son, and maybe even beyond, where Katie is asking, how did you know Ben wouldn't kill me? How did you know I'd survive the attack? And so that storyline of like, why did this happen? And this was a strange sequence of occurrence that came out of the blue. Like, I don't know if the twist completely lands. Well, that had to be unpacked under a couple of books after. Like, that was a lingering storyline, Reese and Katie's relationship after the whole events of Ben and the debt court and et cetera. And I feel like Dark Wolf is giving the space to answer that or preview that, kind of get ahead of it, so it doesn't seem as such an out of the blue strange occurrence when you get to the end of Terminalist. Although on TV show, speaking of Katie, and I don't want to bring it up too much because it's a Dark Wolf podcast, I don't know how they're going to sell the audience that Katie and Reese are a thing or a couple. So I've yet to see what they're going to do with that in True Believer, but I'm putting the cart before the horse there. We got a lot of story to tell before that.
Yeah.
They are filming True Believer because we will have Jack Carr coming on the podcast, and I've got to wake up at 4:30 a.m. for that because he is abroad internationally filming True Believer and getting that show on the road. So things to look forward to for the No Limits faithful out there. And TV. The Terminal Vengeance channel will also have a little Jack Carr preview. Are we allowed to say that?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was able to talk to him a few days ago, and we had a great conversation. It'll probably be a 2-part release because I asked him some questions about the finale, but I'm excited to get it out there.
And you guys also talked Cry Havoc?
We did. Yeah, I really enjoyed Cry Havoc, and I asked him some like general questions, so nothing spoiled for people who haven't read it. And yeah, you can tell how passionate he is about Tom Reese and his story. And like I asked him like why this was the time to jump from James Reese to Tom Reese, and we had a great conversation.
So this is a little of a side, but how did you get into these books?
Well, I guess I was just listening to a lot of audiobooks, and I'd go from subject to subject, and I landed on the military, and I hit like aviation, and then I went into special operations and found Jack Carr's books because it was in that section, and I just started listening to them and immediately binged the first 3, and then I was hooked.
Nice. So have you ventured out into like other Thrillerverse authors?
Yeah, I've started Brad Thor and Vince Flynn, and then a few others out there, but mainly those.
Okay. And so you're mainly an audiobook guy.
I started out in audiobooks, but I think I like physical copies now.
Mm-hmm. Okay. You know, Chris and I were wondering, and I thought I heard it again. There was a little phone call with not Tom Reese, with Jonathan Hastings on the phone. And we were both wondering if either Ray Porter was that voice. I didn't go back and listen to it. There's another phone call here where I'm like, oh my God, it sounds like Ray Porter too. So I don't know if they actually used him in the Dark Wolf, but there's some references that totally make me think of Ray Porter's performance in the books. Anytime we hear a Hastings, Tom Hooper, or one of these phone calls, I'm just like, man, that's taking me back to hearing the audiobook with these Rhodesian accents and everything. They're getting all those parts right.
Yeah, the way he reads it is so good that when I go back and read like the Terminalist, I can hear his voice, like I'm reading in his voice.
Yep.
And I did check IMDb. It is Ray Porter, which is really neat.
All right.
Oh wow, nice.
Chris, I think you called that one on the last
picked that up.
episode. You also made another major call. Maybe it's time to get into the spoilers of episode 4. Eliza, Chris, you said on our episode 3 coverage, you don't trust her. You think
No.
she might be a rat. And then episode 4 ends with the shots in the back. What did you think when that happened?
Oh, I 100% saw it coming.
Yeah.
I feel like putting Mossad in bed with the CIA. We've read too many of these stories to know that it's going to go bad in some fashion, where Israel always trumps most of the time. What's going to go on, but I feel like they were setting this up. I'm super intrigued to see. I know we're covering 4 and 5, so obviously setting up that sort of turn there, and then immediately confronting it. This show wastes no time.
No.
Like I almost feel like this show could have been longer. Like, do you guys feel that? Like, they could have
Completely
made it. Not that I think it's bad. It's not like some other shows where they're jumping around too much, and it. But I do feel like it could have deserved a longer season, just to draw out some of these other things. But that being said, we jump right back into it, and then having the end of the last episode end with her death, like, that was just crazy to me.
It's moving quick. And I, at one point, asked myself, is this show a little too easy? They tee something up, and then the payoff is the next scene, the cut scene. There's no drawing it out. And so to go from one episode, she turns on him, to the second episode, it's basically episode 5, the Eliza and Ben show. It's them mending that relationship, being forced into mending that relationship with the hostile hit. We get 2 of these massive set action pieces, and they both are basically framed with Eliza and Ben's relationship in the background. They have to go scout out the tunnel. The guard finds them. They start making out. So it's like, even on this tunnel op, are things compromised because they're getting too close? And Rafe even warns him and confronts him about that in the let's be manly and chop wood scene, which even that I could have taken a longer montage of. They like chop 2 pieces of wood and it's cut. Like, no, I want to see these hunky dudes cutting wood, like, give me at least 2 minutes of that. But they jump from that too quickly. And then Eliza's blown up next episode right after they mend things. And I think you're right, Chris, that's a consequence of 7 episodes. I wish this was 9, 10. I don't know how Amazon and the studios mandated that. So I do think the writer's room is doing the best they can with those constraints. I understand a little timeline compression, understand a little compression of dialogue to advance storylines and relationships quicker than I would like. And the one that is kind of taking a back seat in episode 4 and 5, and maybe why I'm a little lower on them, Mo's just gone. Like, that impacted me not having Mo after the shootout. It seems like, well, I'm not going to say too much, but it seems like it wasn't a mortal wound. Like, it was shot under the vest somewhere in the side, in the oblique or something. So it just seems like they're moving a little too quickly, but then they're ignoring some storylines like that I loved. Maybe that's them trying to say the team is split up. Like, we haven't even seen Haverford really after he took out the physicist. So I guess this is trying to say the team's in shambles. The team is spread out. This is the Ben and Eliza show now. I really do hope, I know there's only 2 episodes left. I do hope we get the Mo show and the Jed Haverford show, because I want that equally as much as we've had screen time with Ben and Eliza, these 2 episodes.
Yeah, I think part of that might be the consequence of having a lot of major characters. And I'm curious to see if people who haven't read True Believer have the same critique on Mo, because we know he's a big character, but other people aren't really going to know that.
Sure.
We were so high on Mo, and even Landry being tossed in here early, because we know what's to come with them. If I were an outsider, I think looking at Mo, I'd be fine with it. But I'd look at Landry and be like, the hell's going on with this guy? Which, again, is teeing something up. But I don't know if I want to say they're mishandled in their storylines. Mo, I don't think was in episodes 1 through 3. But I might say, yeah, it's being mishandled now. And so I'm curious what 6 and 7 will do to bring the team back. does the team need to come back? But we need to see more of Mo and Jed and those characters I really love that they put a lot of time and effort into early. Like we even get a Tal show here. Tal has her scene, and I was really glad about that because I needed to see that. Great combat scene, hand-to-hand action scene.
Someone commented under my review for Dark Wolf, and they said if there was a girl boss fight, then they were going to be out of the show. And I knew that one was coming, but they did not. Yeah, they did not do the like standard girl boss fight. It was like she was really getting rocked, and she was even like screaming for help, and she had to use like improvised weapons and stuff. But that was a killer fight.
Yeah, and I think it played up. It was believable, because we know that built from like the first or second episode, when she struggled like pulling out that gun, like she didn't just immediately get the shots off and get it. She had to struggle with it, like you said, weapon improvisation, and even to the fact that right after she killed the dude, she had to throw up. Like, it's emotional, it's raw, it's true to her character. And I feel like they're doing a really good job of, one, developing each of the characters, but then, like you said, Mike, giving them their like moment. And I do need to see more of a Haverford moment. I feel like we were kind of peeling back the onion of him in, I don't know if it was episode 4 with Rafe and the phone call. But I want to see more of him. And then I definitely want to talk to you guys about like the Rafe scene, like in this whole interrogation, and then ultimately finding out that, hey, this guy is actually undercover. I was a little confused. So we supposed to take it to mean that he was undercover, or that entire team was a German operative team? I guess we don't. Do we not know?
That's the question. This Khalid network was somehow involved with the transfer of these bearings. And I guess the question is, was German intelligence compromised, and actually someone in German intelligence, this guy's boss, or even this guy who's being tortured, working alongside them? This guy's trying to sell, no, we weren't. Then are they like Mossad? Are they trying to undermine the Iranian nuclear program? Did they put fake bearings in? Because at one time, Ben is manipulating the bearings in that cinema museum rundown warehouse thing. And Eliza sees him playing with the bearings, and he says something's not right about these. So is this a German intelligence op? Is Germany undermining the Iranian nuke deal? They actually want them to have centrifuges, so they're trying to get them the right bearings. That's one of those mystery boxes that I'm kind of happy with. So yeah, the torture scene with Rafe, Jack Carr through and through, right? If James Reese isn't going to be the one doing a torture scene, give it to Rafe Hastings. Make him the badass motherfucker doing it. So I was completely happy with that. I don't know. I think the German thing is up for grabs. And this kind of parallels the Shepherd. The Shepherd is compromising some mission, and Mossad wants to figure it out. That's why Eliza and Tal were actually tailing Jed, trying to see, is he in on the game? Is the Shepherd playing him? Is the Shepherd like this deep cover double secret mole that ultimately is running Jed? Is that what's going on here? And I think by looping in the Germans and the Iranian nukes, we're seeing the consequences of that. Whatever the Shepherd's able to do is now having all these downstream effects of other intelligence agencies having shootouts in European cities, and some terrorist network involved, and bombs going off, and car bombs. Is it Mossad? Is it this Khalid network? Is it whoever is working with this German guy? Is it Jed and the Shepherd? Like, I think there's so many mystery boxes that 6 and 7's got to land this plane. We have to start getting answers to some of these things. But I am bought into each of those storylines as its own thread. Would you agree, TV? On your channel, have you talked about the mystery box of it all and who's really the bad guy here?
I haven't gotten into the recent episodes, but one thing that I liked about the torture scene and how that played out was, I think it really illustrates the fog of war well. And even the bearings and the Khalid network, nobody really knows what's going on. The audience doesn't know. You're right there with them. And I think even like episode 1 with Duran, there's some things that aren't black and white. And I think Dark Wolf shows that, and they go somewhere that most shows probably wouldn't dare.
Hmm. Yeah, no, there's I think look back to the scene of Ben Edwards just capping a dude in the middle of a subway right after smiling at a little girl. Like it's the show is, like I said, it's a little raw. It's kind of trying to show you the inner workings of CIA operatives, that kind of stuff. I think I look back to some other shows that have done this really well. I think Homeland, the first couple seasons. Slow Horses. I don't know if you guys have watched that show. But yeah, like it's interesting to see. I have no idea where this is going to go. And I think that's ultimately a good thing. I think it's like you said, Mike, I'm intrigued enough, and I'm not disappointed that like I'm pissed off. Like, other shows, like when you don't have enough intrigue or there's too many loose ends with 2 episodes to go, you can kind of like check out or be like, I'm not buying the show. But here, I do think they have a chance to quote unquote land the plane and wrap everything up in the next 2 episodes. And then hopefully, sail us into True Believer. So,
yeah. I'm a harsh critic on both TV and books. So on the podcast, I've had a lot of hot takes. I will say I could very easily be turned off by some of that and go, I don't really care who the shepherd is. This is ridiculous. No, I really care. Like, I really want to know who's running who. And they sold me so hard on Jed being the good soldier, right? Being the faithful one. His whole life is in this, decades of experience. He was involved in Stuxnet. He was involved in other operations. He even mentioned Lebanon and Beirut. And really cool flashback. They even show footage from the Beirut bombings, and knowing that was another one of Jack Carr's books and one of his, personal pet projects. With amazing book, by the way. To actually bring that into the show and have that with a character of Jed, I was eating it up. I was lapping it out of their hands. And now Mossad is trying to convince us Jed is compromised. Jed's been being played. I'm very much bought into that. So I'd be the first one to critique these things if I didn't think they were working, if I thought they were cheap cuts or easy way out, or they're taking shortcuts, cheap shots. Not at all. I think they've built this up really well. I think the storytelling's great. And maybe that's because they're unburdened by a book. The Terminalist first season, some of the best parts and characters were people off book that the screenwriters just felt free to do so and tell the story they need to tell, write dialogue they need to write. And some of the scenes that didn't land were ones where they tried too hard to be faithful to the book, but couldn't or didn't, and it got sloppy. I feel like the show really has the freedom to let the writers do what they need to do and tell the story they need to tell, and it's mostly working.
Yeah, I think this is what happens when you have like 10 master storytellers together instead of one, and they get to create something, and everybody gets to put their input in, and the best idea wins. Instead of, the books are really good, but when you have a bunch of people to bounce ideas off of, I think you really get the best product you can.
And I'm just looking at like the writers of each individual show, or each individual episode. So we have episode 1 was a story by Jack Carr and Dave DiGilio, who producer on the show. Then we have 2 episodes by Mac Adams, episodes 2 and 3. And you can kind of see, like, thinking back to those 2, they kind of had a cohesion to them. And then I'm looking to see what's coming up. So episode 6, it's titled Pawns and Kings, is written by Max Adams and then Jared Shaw, who we know is Boozer, and also a producer on the show. And then we finish up with the season finale is written by Jack Carr and David DiGilio again. So,
interesting. I'm kind of very happy to hear that the last 2 episodes have Jared Shaw, Jack, David DiGilio working on it. Because yes, the screenwriters, all the other people who are in the room putting in their 2 cents, but just those names as well being in the room. You're right, TV, in saying that is just a masterful lineup, and we're seeing that come through. Now, did you all catch, and I could have been mistaken, did Gordo come back from the dead? Gordo, the man himself, Jack Carr, was he one of those bad guys in the tunnel shootout? I think he was the guy who tried to get out of the SUV in the passenger side and just got shot immediately after they boxed him in. I could be wrong, but actually I could hold it up to the screen. I really think that was a Jack Carr cameo. Do you know anything about that, TV, if I'm right on that?
He's posted some pictures on Instagram. There he is. The man,
Gordo.
the myth, the legend.
The only character in the Terminalist to come back from the dead.
Yeah. I talked to him the other day, and he was saying that they were planning on him being able to get a few shots off, but the timing wasn't right, so he had to go down immediately.
Yeah.
I saw that he posted. He's like, I think he said he lasted not as long as he did in Terminalist. So
yeah, he actually got like a walk-up scene in that one where you see him in the mirror and he's walking into the restaurant. Yeah, it was quicker here. That's funny. Oh, so speaking of these action scenes, these shootouts, we essentially have between these two episodes the tunnel hit, and that's compromised. The hostel, and that whole shootout, and then we have the Tal fight. Do you feel like each of those did enough to live up to what they established? I mean, when we opened with that bridge scene, when we were on the front lines of Iraq, I think they swung big in that they are going to get the action, the military, the shootouts right. These two episodes, I felt, in the two big set action pieces, pivoted to more of like a video game, almost not easy to buy into. It almost seemed like these bad guys were just being spawned all of a sudden. They were like NPGs just spawning out of the blue. It reminded me of Tom Clancy, like playing Rainbow Six and having to do, I don't know about you guys, but I spent hours on the library trying to take down all the guys in the library, and the terrorists just, you turn a corner and then you know exactly where they're going to spawn each time. I don't know. I was a little taken out of it by the video game-esque-ness of it all in those two shootouts. So as action set pieces, they just fell a little lower for me than what they had in the first few episodes. I don't know if you feel the same way.
I don't know. I'll agree with you that when they're at the hostel scene, like that, well, while it was cool and like,
Sure,
showing off Ben and I blank on her name, but
Eliza.
What's her name? Eliza's action, readiness as operators. Yeah, like they know exactly where like the shooter's going to pop, and I guess it's kind of showing their ability to work together. Like even though like
Sure.
they just like kind of met each other. I did really like the tunnel scene. I felt like that captured this, close net. The way they shot it, like they were very close on, like, it wasn't like this. We didn't really see this wide perspective. We were close in with the, people as they're going, and multiple times in these two episodes, and we've seen this throughout the series where they do like, when a bomb goes off or a frag goes off, they'll slow motion, but like the sound is still staying the same speed, and then they speed it, and then they quickly speed up the camera again to bring it back into pat. Like how many times is Ben Edwards going to either get shot or have to jump out of an exploding vehicle or jump from some sort of explosion and be still okay. But I'll agree with you a little bit on for sure the hostel scene, but I did quite like the tunnel scene.
We said in the first three episodes it wasn't Gray Man-esque. It wasn't over-the-top bombastic violence, and these shootouts were not believable. And then in this episode, I felt like it was a little more Gray Man-esque. He's just surviving everything, and then the car bomb at the end. So, TV, I'll let you go, but yeah, I agree with you there. It just felt a little bit less realistic than they established early on.
Yeah, and I guess one thing would be earlier on in the season, Ben and his team are in control of the fight.
Sure.
And at this point, he's not with his team, and he doesn't get to choose which cards he's going to get. He's really getting rocked in those fights, and he doesn't really have control like he did earlier on.
I guess that speaks, that's a great point. I guess it speaks to the resources available when a CIA lone wolf or dark wolf operation, a couple of you guys just out on the fronts in the middle of a residential European city versus a battlefield, an entire QRF on standby, air support, gunboat support, which they had on the river, the 50 cals. It's really just you in the street, hiding behind walls and barriers, trying to blend in, trying to escape. So I think you're right. Maybe that speaks to the different mission parameters and resources available on a CIA Black Ops team when things go south versus a military front lines battle where things go south. Totally different procedures, totally different set of operating rules. And so, yeah, that makes it more viable, more believable to me. I think that's a great point.
And it's a far cry from when we saw Rafe and Ben acting as these wolves, when they're trying to take down the one arms dealer in, what was that, episode 2?
Oh, yeah.
In the audition. To now, and it's even echoed with Hastings's, reservations about this operation in terms of 1, collateral damage, 2, we don't have the full picture. But, again, I think it's also like that progression of Ben Edwards' character into how he's just has to continue on down this path, and like there's no going back to him being like he was in the teams, like, yeah, he has that knowledge, but he is becoming, this entity, and that is what these people do.
And that's the theme of Put on the Brakes. Rafe and Ben having different philosophies. Rafe is totally now like, shit, I should have put the brakes on. Like I took the guardrails off, killing this German intelligence guy, torturing and killing a friendly in German intelligence. Ben and Eliza would be like, I don't care. Like, mission above self, mission above allies, mission above all else. Kind of the Mossad tagline, if you will, the Israeli self-determination, self-preservation line. And Rafe is, I think, skirting with that and realizing that's not where I want to go. And that's not where I want my country to go. That's where I don't want my country's intelligence apparatus to be forced to go. And we're seeing Ben basically say, I'm fine playing by those rules, especially now that they took Eliza from him when he takes the bracelet. I'm wondering if that bracelet was also a tracking or listening device. I'm curious about the bracelet. Hopefully, I'm not too much of a skeptic. Hopefully, it's just a nice, heartfelt story about it and her child and her daughter. I just think that's the difference between Ben and Rafe, which has also been very compelling of where do they come out on the other side? Let's say both of them finish this op, survive it, are out of the game, if you will, as much as you can be out of the game. Where they come out on the opposite side is miles apart. And they were both brought into the game on the same page, being kicked out of the teams, having to cover for each other, lying to military command, putting their asses on the line, making up this fake story. The Brotherhood is going to stick together no matter what, covering for Ben. Now Ben goes loose cannon and Rafe is trying to reel it in and realize I didn't want to go that far. They started a little closer together. They're going to end up on the other side miles apart, which again illuminates things that happen later on down the road. So it's a great prequel story. It's a great story on its own. It's an amazing prequel story to Ben Edwards and Rafe Hastings.
All right, TB, why don't you give us some predictions for what you think, how this story is going to end in the next 2 episodes?
Oh, dangerous.
I've actually seen the other episodes already.
Oh,
Dude,
you have. Okay.
Wow.
Got some screeners.
Did they have the watermark on them?
They did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Ooh.
So I guess we don't want to put you in any sort of compromising, and I don't want any spoilers. But
you've been good then, holding back with us and with the audience. You've been really good at holding back and sticking to episode by episode without jumping the gun. Kudos.
Yeah, it's made so well. I would not want to spoil it for anybody.
Okay. All right.
That's great.
It's good to hear.
How about this then? How about episodes 4 and 5 as a package? What would you give as a letter grade? Imagine you're sitting through your exams. What's a letter grade you get? And then overall, so far on what you've seen in the season, what would you give overall as a letter grade?
Ooh.
We'll put you on the spot a different way.
Yeah. I'm not a very harsh critic, but seeing Rafe be the character that we know from the books, and seeing the fights that I expected when I saw the teasers, I'm going with an A. And man, another moment from episode 5 that just gave me chills was when Simple Man came on, and
Yeah.
man, that was just Ben's song and calls back to the first season and Jared Shaw's story. That just really hit home.
The needle drops in this season are really good.
Yeah.
Big budget on that too.
Soundtrack's been good.
Yeah.
Now, they played the actual Leonard Skinner version in the car at the end, but the opening credits are a different version.
Yeah.
And what do you think of the opening credits? The intro?
I like them.
Pretty good
Do you skip
montage.
'em?
I haven't, only because I've really been trying to look for the details. We had Tyler Boer, another super fan, Jack Carr super fan, on the pod a bunch of times, and he's the man for spotting gear. He eats up every time Jack Carr pushes, gear in the books, which turns some people off, but he's also a gearhead. So he was able to spot everything in Reese's, his garage or his workshop in the Terminalist. So I really like how they went with Ben's abode, slightly more humble abode, more not quite trailer park, but almost to that level, compared to Reese's in season 1, his home with a family. He's settled down. He's got a daughter. He's got all his nostalgia. He's got his weapons. He's got his patches. He's like, it's a very good contrast seeing Ben Edwards' personal life peek behind the curtains than what we saw with Reese.
Yeah, and I love how in the Dark Wolf intro, it's like showing with objects 2 different Bens. Like there's, I think, a sink, and it doesn't have pills, and then it has pills and some alcohol, and then just other things around the boat, like scuba tanks and spear guns, and then his weapons. And it just shows, like, I think him in the first season, and then him now, and him as a warrior, and then when he's off on his own.
Yeah. And he fades. I really like when that light goes to dark. He's standing in the kitchen and he fades. It's almost like his humanity fading. I think it's really symbolic and well done.
I think there's also a silhouette of someone's arm that you'll know if you've seen the first season.
Now I got to look for that.
Is that when he's standing there? That's when you see that?
Yeah.
Oh.
See, I'm not good at picking up Easter eggs. I have an attention span of like a goldfish, I guess.
Well, Chris, there's a good YouTube channel for you. It can help you out.
Yeah, I know. That's what we need. That's what we need. Letter grade 4 and 5 as a package. I don't know. If I went B+ for episode 1, and then I went straight A for 2, 3. I don't know. I think I'm gonna go back down to like an A- for these. They're I don't know. I still like the progression of the story. I like the introspection we're getting with, this sort of dichotomy between Rafe and Ben, throwing in some action there, throwing in some intrigue. And it's got me super, super looking forward to the next 2 episodes. Like, I can't wait for, I don't know when Amazon does their drops. Like, I know it comes out tomorrow. We're recording this on Tuesday, September 16th. So, like, does it come out tonight at midnight, like, or 3 p.m. like Pacific time, like, or 3 a.m. Pacific time? Like, I don't know, but I would watch it tomorrow morning if it's available. Like,
yeah, good question.
Get to work early and then hide in my cubicle and watch it.
Yeah, and we were going to package episode 6 and 7 as our final episode. If 6 does something phenomenal that we have to kind of jump on and get that one done, we may do that. But otherwise, you won't hear from us again talking Dark Wolf until episode 6 and 7 are out and we have a conclusion. And we will be bringing on Tyler Boer. So yet another Jack Carr super fan. Doesn't have his own awesome YouTube channel about Easter eggs and spoilers, but we'll talk to him about the conclusion. Well, why don't you leave us with a plug? We talked a little bit about your channel. You opened up with it. Just tell the people where they can find you and how can people get into Terminal Vengeance.
Yeah, my main platform is YouTube. I try to be consistent with my videos, and I've built a pretty good community there, and I love interacting with other fans. But you can find me at Terminal Vengeance on YouTube, Instagram, and X, and I'm also launching my website here shortly.
Nice.
Cool. That's awesome.
Yeah.
No, this was great. I think one, I'm happy to see the younger generation like diving into these books and enjoying these, because it wasn't long ago that I was in college, and my buddy Mike and my buddy Tom handed me my first Brad Thor and Vince Flynn book, and then they had a Sucker for Life, the Emily Bessler books, but I think it's just, the more we can build this community, the better. So I encourage all of our listeners to go out there, check you out, hit that subscribe button. And I look forward to watching more of your Easter eggs for sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. Maybe we'll even get a chance to talk Cry Havoc with you once that book comes out. So, or any other time, we'd love to have you back on the show. So, stay in touch, and thanks for all that you do to expand the Jack Carr universe.
Yeah, thank you for having me. This has been a blast, and I'd love to come back on, but if not, I'll still be listening, and I love what y'all do.
Appreciate it. Thanks, man. Thanks, dude.